Guys, I'm tired of living a lie. I always say that I have serious beef with the romantasy genre just because I think sometimes it doesn't strike the balance of fantasy and romance very well. And it is very tropey since it is such like a buzzy genre. So I do have a lot of problems with some of the romantasy books that come out. But the truth is, I actually really love the concept of it. And if a book has like just a perfect romance with a really good fantasy plot, that is what can take a book to like 6 stars for me. The problem is if a romantasy has a subpar romance, but it's still a romantasy, that will automatically dock it to 3 stars at maximum. It's just a tightrope for me. So I want to see what's going on with the most recent romantasy releases, and with the next week that I'm not working, I thought it would be fun to do a quick little reading vlog of recent romantasy releases that people are talking about. So here's what I have on the docket. I already own 2 books that I want to get to since I already own them. One of those is In the Veins of the Drowning. It's like a siren fantasy book. And then another one I own is Soulgazer. I've read like 10 pages of it, which is why it says on my Fable I've been reading it for the past 2 months, but I've only read 10 pages of it, so I need to finish it. And that just came out. It is about this girl who is cursed with magic, and she's like set to be betrothed to this king, and then she ends up kind of having to break away with the help of this rakish pirate character. But for like the final book, because I do want to read 3 because I love a nice holy number, I have a couple other options. So another book that I saw was like a recent release is The Gods Time Forgot. I believe this is kind of like a time travel, like Victorian era romantasy. I love that whole era, and it could be like a nice breakup from like the traditional epic fantasy styles of the other 2 books. So I was thinking like maybe that. Another one I've been seeing a lot is When Tides Held the Moon. I love this cover so much. I think this is like, there's like a circus situation, and like there's like a kidnapped male mermaid situation happening. I do love all of that. I've heard like kind of mixed things, so I'm like on the fence about it, but I am curious about the premise of it because I like love stuff like that. But I also had a Forbidden Alchemy on my TBR for a long time, and I've heard like some people that I'm friends with said that they actually really enjoyed that one, so that's another option. But for sure, we're gonna start with In the Veins of the Drowning, and I'll also get a Soulgazer, and then after I'm finished with those, we'll figure out what I'm in the mood for after that. But this is just gonna be a fun experiment for me. We'll see how I feel about these. Okay, but while I'm here, I do need to say I have started In the Veins of the Drowning, so now is the perfect time for me to give my like initial thoughts. Like I'm a decent ways into it. I'm not at the halfway mark quite yet, but I have read quite a bit of it, and I have thoughts. This was like really hyped up. Like a lot of people said this was their favorite book of the year. And anytime I mentioned it in a video, people would say, oh my gosh, Vanessa, you have to read that. Like you're going to love it. It was like my favorite book of the year. The romance was so good. It was so interesting. Anyway, the premise of this is about a girl who is kind of like a ward of this one kingdom. So she lives like in the palace as a ward underneath this one king who is known to be like pretty cruel, honestly. And she has been hiding this huge piece of herself. And that kind of secret is that she is a siren. I do love the sirens in this. I love the siren mythology in this. The sirens have these like black leather wings and these long black talons that come out anytime they like smell or taste sea salt, which I really love that. I love the way that like this book looks aesthetically in my mind and how the sirens are portrayed in that way. But anyway, there is like a neighboring king who is visiting the palace, and stuff kind of goes down, and she quickly has to kind of like break off this engagement to the commander of the king's army, because they find out her secret of being a siren, and sirens are like really hunted in this world. So her and the neighboring king that is visiting make an alliance, and they have to like run off together. So without spoiling too much, my initial thoughts and like why I'm like kind of not feeling great about it so far. The writing style is fine. Like I said, I like the sirens. I love like the rocky bluffs and cliffs kind of feeling of the like the ocean and everything like that. It feels like chilly. You can feel the like biting cold sea salt air, like blustering wind. I love that whole thing. I don't have a problem with like this writer's abilities at this point. It's not about that, but there's a trope that's used that I just really don't like, and when I picked this book up, I had no idea it had this trope, which is like fated mates or blood bonds. I don't like fated mates. I know people really like it. I think that it just makes romance way too easy. The neighboring king and our main character kind of have to make a blood bond in order to like escape the situation together. And so we're like kind of watching how that's unfolding. They're like immediately wildly attracted to each other. This is just the thing. I think that when we do a blood bond, it makes it so that the author doesn't have to actually like figure out how to make two people platonically come together and like figure out how a normal relationship and normal bonds actually like come together, because you can skip all of that and just say they're attracted to each other because of the bond, or they want to protect each other because of the bond. Like you can skip all of the hard parts about building a relationship with someone and just say like, oh, it's because of the magical thing. I just find it a little bit lazy and weak, and that's my personal opinion. Some people love fated mates, like it feels, I don't know, cathartic for them, but I am not that girl. I am not that girl, and that's where we're at now. And they're like debating if they like need to get physical with each other to like alleviate the circumstances of this blood bond. Mind you, they've known each other like maybe a week at most at this point. I just don't like that, guys. And like, this is the sort of book where it feels very romantasy heavy. Like, not a lot of plot has happened yet, I would say. And so it feels like the romance is like very like front, like at the wheel at the moment. And I'm not taken by this romance right now. So I'm really hoping things turn around for me, but this seems like you either love it or hate it type of book, depending on if you're okay with that trope. And I didn't know it had that trope, but now I'm too locked in, and we're gonna ride this one out. This is not the tone I wanted to start out on, but we're gonna see where it goes. I'm gonna keep an open mind. I'm not gonna like preemptively judge too much, but that's my initial thoughts on In the Veins of the Drowning. Thank you. Okay, this is my midpoint check-in for In the Veins of the Drowning. Y'all, I feel kind of lied to about this book. A lot of people really hyped this up to me. Mind you, I'm at 60%. Like, we've given this a good go so far. And nothing of importance has happened in this book, in my opinion, at all in this entire time. I know some people have maybe connected very deeply to these characters and felt very invested in their romantic relationship. I feel like I don't know anything about either of these characters. I don't know who they are. I don't know their personalities, because the only thing that's happened so far for 60% of this book, how it feels to me, okay, in my opinion, how it is feeling to me, is just two people who had a blood bond in chapter 3, maybe it wasn't chapter 3, but like at some point early on, and are now like ridiculously horny for each other and are both like in heat, and for some reason they're super mad at each other at the same time. So ever since they first met, I've been trying to figure out why they're so mad at each other, because they never really say, or if they did, sorry, maybe I just didn't interpret it properly, but I genuinely could not figure out why these people disliked each other so much, because they have so much animosity for each other, and I don't know why. Like, the main male character is really grouchy toward the main female character, and the main female character thinks that he's just like has such a stick up his butt, and I just don't know why. Like, they don't have personal beef really, so I don't get where this energy is coming from. It feels really ham-fisted to me, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so like pretty much nothing plot relevant has happened until about like the 50% mark, when they get to this place and stuff starts happening. But like up until then, it was just them on a journey, and both of them like debating if they should just have sex to like let it out. Because apparently the blood bond, it's supposed to settle after 2 days. And what settling means is basically like you stop ovulating for one another. So you really, really want to bang it out for like 2 days, and then it goes away, and then you can act normal toward each other, even if you're still blood bonded. But for them, it was just weird. Like, super special magic stuff was happening where they kept wanting to bang it out, and they're really mad about that at some point. So at one point they have an argument that is so incomprehensible to me, and I honestly think I'm a good reader, to be honest, but this just came out of nowhere, and I had no idea what was going on. But apparently he was mad because she wasn't taking initiative for this thing that he thought she was feeble for not taking initiative on, apparently. Which, by the way, he gave very little indication of any of that resentment early on. And she is mad because she's horny for him, and she knows that he's horny for her, and he won't express that horniness. And she's like, I know when you were in your 20s, you got around. Like, you were a player. And so the fact that you don't want to F me is like, now I have personal beef with you. for some reason, which is really, really a nuts thing to have beef with someone over. But I'm like legitimately serious when I say that's actually what they were beefing about. This really doesn't make any sense. There's very little plot happening here. I still really like the siren aspect of this. There's nothing wrong with the writing style either. Like, the writing is okay. Like, it's totally fine. I don't like this trope, and I thought, okay, you know, I could forgive it if other stuff goes on in the story, but so far, nothing else is really going on. Like, it's not until like 50%, 55% that we were even like, oh yeah, let's get back to any sort of fantasy plot element. Because up until then, it was just them randomly getting horny for each other and then being mad about it. And then everyone going, you guys should just bang. And then them going like, no, for some reason. Technically, they're also forbidden lovers because they're like both engaged independently, technically. But like, they don't want to be. So it's like, I just don't understand what the beef is. I don't like, their conflict only exists in this book because the author needs there to be conflict. Otherwise, the fact that they're so mad at each other and the fact that they're in such distress doesn't actually make any logical sense. They're only in distress because they need to be in distress so that there will be any sort of conflict or relational tension. And it's not tangible to me. Like, it just doesn't feel tangible. I would consider this one of those romantasies that like wanted to do a lot of tropey stuff and then was like, oh yeah, I have to do a plot also. And then like tried to make a plot in between the romantic scenes that like maybe someone wanted to write. Not accusing this author of doing that, but that's how it feels to me. I really thought this one would go better than this. Okay, we're gonna finish it out, and I'm trying so hard not to be a negative Nancy because I swear I like a lot of romantasy books, and I'm not just like a naysayer, and I'm not above it all. And if you loved this book, a lot of people loved this book this year. If you love this book this year, I love you. I love you. But this does not have my favorite things in the world going for it right now. Some of y'all about to be real mad at me. But it must be said. In my mid-update, I said I was feeling like this was kind of giving insta-love, and I realized that this was a blood bond trope. And that kind of energy just carried through the end, and then the ending was extremely info-dumpy in my opinion. I just felt like I came away from this book feeling like it lacked on like every single level possible. And I know that I'm in the minority because if you look up this book on Goodreads or Fable, it has like 4 or 5 stars from like pretty much everybody. So I genuinely was like, there's no way that I'm gonna dislike it so much more than other people were. Like, there's no way that it just carries on this trajectory. And it just did. And then it kind of like hits a brick wall at the very end, in my opinion. On a line-by-line basis, there's nothing exactly wrong with this. And I feel like I could see the vision that this author has. And I feel like in other books that are not a debut, like, I could see this author improving on, like, the pacing and, like, especially for romantic subplots, like, figuring out how to make that believable. But this one is just sort of, like, missing a lot for me. My main thing was I didn't understand who these characters were, like, pretty much off the bat. Like, most books I read, I can at least distinguish, like, a voice for our main female character. For this book, like, I couldn't tell you a single distinguishable feature that our main female character has. Like, she doesn't have a personality. She's just, like, upset with the main male character for ambiguous reasons. And when I say ambiguous reasons, I mean I was genuinely flabbergasted the entire book by how weird their energy was, because from like day dot when they meet, she has like this adversarial like attitude toward him that's so unfounded. Like, I think this author wanted to write a compelling will they won't they, but the thing is, you can't write a compelling will they won't they and then give them a fated mate's like blood bond trope, because it's like, well, you just gave us the end. Like, there's no will they won't they. It's not a question, it's a when will they, or it's a God, please just make them do it already and put me out of my misery, because these two people are howling like cats in heat at each other for no reason. Sorry, I'm getting really heated, but I genuinely was upset because I felt like my time was wasted with that romantic subplot, because I hate that trope so much. So it could really be an issue with me picking up a book where I didn't know exactly what the tropes were, and I picked up a book that has the trope that I despise the most, which is fated mates. I am a huge advocate for earned romantic subplots. And I don't like insta-love, I don't like insta-lust. And this was insta-lust because the blood bond in this book, like, they had to be sealed to each other, which makes them, like, inexplicably horny for each other. And it's supposed to settle after 2 days, and they never settled, which gave them the impression that they actually had more going on, and more chemistry than they previously thought. But it's like, okay, well, if they had chemistry, I wish that I saw that happen naturally, without any, like, magic remedy potion blood bond situation. Because then I'd be like, okay, at least I know that these two characters actually see something in each other. Because, like, the whole time they're obsessed with each other, I'm like, yeah, because they have a magic potion that's, like, bonding them to each other. So it doesn't feel like it's actually rooted in their characters and their journeys and any real character arc. That's why I feel like this trope is so cheap. And you will find me saying that over and over again on the channel. If you like that trope, you find it comforting, you find it reassuring, you'll love this book. Maybe that's why everyone else was giving it 4 or 5 stars, but I hate it. Another thing that was bothering me is our main female character got this, like, one substance that will break the bond, and she really always wanted to break the bond because she hates this guy for, again, no real reason. But she has the bottle and she refuses to drink it. She never ever drinks it. And here's what I thought was gonna happen. I thought she was gonna drink it and find that she still had really intense feelings for him. And I was like, okay, well, at least that proves that it was earned. It didn't feel good along the way, but at least that would prove something to me. She never takes it. She refuses to take it. She, like, maintains her grievances with him, yet refuses to break the bond for some weird, ambiguous reason. Pretty much the entire actual plot of this book was really ambiguous for a very long time. And they had, like, a single goal of going to this one place for, like, 60% of the book, and the whole 60% is spent on them bickering about, like, how bad they want to have sex with each other and them refusing to do it, which I find so exhausting. Because there's also, like, a thing that happens at the beginning, and a reason why off the bat I didn't like this main female character. Something goes on, and she needs to get out of the castle, which she's a ward to this king in. And so she, like, bursts into his room, and she's like, you need to steal me away. I need to go with you. We need a blood bond, and then you need to take me with you. And then the king, the main male character, is like, I'm not going to do that because then it's going to start a war with your king if I just steal you. And she's like, I don't care. How could you be so selfish? What? Who's the selfish one? You don't even know this guy. You met him literally 2 nights ago, and you, for some reason, really didn't like his energy. You are a bad vibe. She was just a bad vibe. I did not like her. She was really selfish, and outside of the selfishness, that it doesn't really get acknowledged, to be honest, that much. She's just, like, really boring and really uninteresting, and I don't know why that guy is so into her, outside of the blood bond. And then when it comes to, like, the politics plot, because it's like, okay, great, now we have, like, a war, and, like, people are, like, trying to hunt down this one king who stole this warden. And there's also all of this backstory about, like, why are the sirens being hunted? Like, all of these interesting mythological elements as well. Legitimately, I had no idea what was going on because we don't get any semblance of world building basically until the last 5% of this book. And all of the world building is vomited out from this one important character that shows back up. And, like, just an info dump during a battle. Like, it's like, who has the time during a battle to be saying all of this? He's just speaking all of this. Like, he's just saying everything that you need to know. Like I said, on a line-by-line basis and, like, visually, like, the gothic aesthetic and everything like that, I see the vision, and I think that this author could improve. This is a debut. As a precedent, I give my honest critique, even if it is a debut. And that's my honest critique. If I liked the romance a little bit more, I probably would have let some stuff slide. The fantasy plot, the politics plot, it's all saved for the very end, and it's kind of, like, wrapped up really quickly, and it's super confusing as well. I've read a lot of really heavy world building fantasy books. The explanation, maybe because it just is done in a big burst, but it was so jumbled and confusing. By the end, I didn't even quite understand what was said, and I was like, it doesn't matter because I'm not going to read the sequel anyway. As always, if you like this book and I dislike this book, that means you won and I lost. So I am a loser here today. Okay, now I'm going to get into my third book, which I've already decided is going to be Forbidden Alchemy. And the reason why I'm reading this is it was, like, recommended by a lot of my mutuals on TikTok, and they said it was, like, pretty good. And this might be heavier on the fantasy, but I heard that the romance is also really good. So I just heard, like, generally good things, and I feel pretty confident about it, so I wanted to try it out. So I did start it, and I have some initial thoughts about that. This book is about a girl named Nina. And we first meet her when she's 12 years old, and she's on her way over to the Belvedere Academy where, like, the artisans practice and train. And in this world, there's 2 different, like, like socioeconomic statuses that you can have. You could either be an artisan or a craftsman. The craftsmen are considered like a lower class of people, kind of. They usually like work in really dangerous jobs like mines. They do very like mundane sorts of jobs as well. But it's kind of overall considered to be like underprivileged. Of course, though, like the society in this world tries to frame it as like these are just two different types of work that you can do, but the artisans are the ones who get to do like alchemy, and they have magical powers, and they're usually like offered a higher station in society. And most of the people who become artisans just so happen to usually come from higher class places in society as well to start off with. So at 12 years old, all of the children go to Belvedere Academy, and they are given like this very specific potion which basically tells you whether or not you're going to be a craftsman or an artisan. It can expose whether or not you have like a propensity for magic that would allow you to become an artisan. So if you are an artisan, you quickly get sorted into like this very esteemed academy, and you can move up in life basically. And if you're a craftsman, you just go back to where you came from. And our main character, Nina, is from a craftsman society that is like a bunch of miners work there. Like her father was a miner. And while she's at this academy, she meets a young boy named Patrick, who is also from a similar station in life, and they quickly become fast friends. And she realizes that he kind of has this rebellious spirit, and like he wants to go explore, because based off of like his interactions with his family members who are also like miners, he is like not interested in giving any respect to this academy at all. And as they're exploring, they basically find out like a huge secret about how the society works that could untangle everything about the systems that they exist in. They end up meeting later on in life after a huge time jump, and Patrick has since kind of like gone back to being a craftsman and is kind of the kingpin of this revolution. And Nina has since become an artisan, and she was studying under the academy. So they're coming from like very different worlds, though originally when they met, they were both from like these small minor towns, and basically they're kind of like forced into proximity with each other and forced to work with each other, but both of them have like a lot of secrets, and it's very tense. I immediately actually was pleasantly surprised, or maybe I've just been reading a lot of romantasy this year, and I don't always expect romantasy to have like the strongest messaging. There's often like messaging about like, oh, women can be cool and badass too, or like monarchy is bad, like this stuff that's like pretty straightforward. I would say I don't expect like a lot from romantasy these days in terms of messaging. And I'm not going to say that Forbidden Alchemy is like some revolutionary work of fiction, but I am surprised that it actually has something to say. It's like very, very big on like the propaganda of this world, and how like consent has been manufactured, and like the socioeconomic strife basically is like a huge deal in this. And I think that the way that it's set out is like clever and compelling enough, especially since I wasn't expecting it. I think I'm impressed by it. One thing that is harped on pretty much right off the bat and continues to come up throughout the book is like the problems with alcoholism and domestic abuse and like drug use in these communities that are like underprivileged, and these men and these boys that have to go off to work in these mines in the horrific conditions, and it's how traumatic it is, like leading them to drinking a lot, and how traumatic that has been for like the woman at home. I find like that's like a really refreshing thing to touch on actually in like a work like this. So already I was kind of like endeared to the story, and I do feel like we get a lot of setup before we get any sort of semblance of romance. So like I don't know that I would recommend this to like the romantasy heavy people. I actually would recommend this for more of like the political fantasy people. It gives kind of like people might describe it as like a Peaky Blinders-esque. Like there's a little bit of like a gangster feeling about the rebellion that Patrick is leading, but with the goal of like overthrowing this kind of empire that's purposefully stratifying different groups of people based off of like their socioeconomic status, and then propagandizing the public to be like, actually this is just natural, like people fall into natural categories, like we're all playing fair. It's just interesting. So I like the whole aesthetic of it. I like the background of it. I like the characters. I think that Patrick is a really interesting main male character. He has a very distinct voice that I really, really like, and I do think our main female character is like wrong at times. Like she's dead wrong. Like she's playing into the system for the beginning of this book, and like she prioritizes her own prestige over like what she knows to be right or over what she's seen like the people back home live through, even though she knows better at this point. So like I like it. It's complicated enough. Like I'm impressed by it so far, and I've really been enjoying it. I'm like looking forward to the romance at this point because I do find both of these main characters interesting, and I think the secrets that they're holding are interesting, and I'm like think that this could be like very angsty intense. The reason why I'm surprised also is because this cover I think is doing a bit of a disservice to what this book actually is. Like I wish it had a different aesthetic to it, because this looks like very same romantasy. Like this doesn't entice me in any such way, and I think that it could have been like more like gas lampy. Like I don't know, the purpley colors threw me off a lot, and it doesn't really feel like that. Like the book just doesn't feel like this cover, and I think that's why I was put off by it, to be honest. And I would advise a re-release of this if that's possible. But anyways, I'm enjoying it. I think that it has something to say, not groundbreaking, but like something interesting to say. I'll let you know my thoughts on it midway through. I am over halfway through with Forbidden Alchemy, so I'm going to give you my little over midway update here. And overall, like I'm not going to call this some groundbreaking book, but overall, I actually really do like how these themes have been handled so far. It's predictable in its own way, but in a way that I find kind of satisfying, I guess, for right now. So I think this can be like a great entry into the romantasy genre as like, I don't know, maybe propel these romantasy books to get more political, I think. Like, I'd love to see that. And I'm like actually proud of this book for doing that. So I've enjoying that part for sure. I also do like the romance aspect of this as well. Of course, it did actually take a long time just because we really had to get to like the meat and potatoes of this political landscape and of this rebellion in the book. So we did take a minute to get to the romance. And like, I will say like all of their scenes when they're just platonic and like kind of have budding feelings for each other. I love the way that this author writes like chemistry and like small moments between characters. That's my favorite part of romance. I know some people like the fluff of romance and everything. I don't. I truly don't. So I like the way that their different socio-political backgrounds, or the ways that they're dissimilar more than they are similar, adds a lot of like tension on the relationship. I really enjoy that, and I find it really engaging and gripping, and I think that they have like a lot to sort through. I have gotten to the point where this couple has gotten together, and I was really enjoying this book and was like, wow, I might give this a pretty high rating, and I still think I will, but like I was really enjoying this book up until about now. It kind of feels like now that this couple has like kissed and like gotten intimate and everything, it feels like we're taking a huge detour to like focus on emphasizing how wildly physically attractive these two characters are to each other, so that they can go and like have sex 4 times a day. And it's been like 30 pages of that. I don't know if anyone else who read this book felt that way. I just get bored of the continuous sex scenes over and over and over again. I feel like 2 is good, but once we're hitting like 3 sex scenes within like a short amount of time, and we've taken away our time and the like with the plot that's very pertinent to go and do this, I start feeling like, okay, wrap it up. Because I'm looking forward to them honestly getting their honeymoon phase like forcibly ripped away from them and them having like beef again. I'm really toxic about romances. Sorry. If you're on my channel, you have to know this. I like romances where low-key they have serious beef with each other. I don't know how to describe it. Like I do and I don't. Like I want there to be conflict and tension in romantic subplots. That's my favorite part of romantic subplot. Not because I romanticize toxicity or abusive relationships, but just because like narratively I think it's more interesting when the couple is going through it, and I get to like watch each of these characters develop as people and develop within their relationship because of whatever is keeping them apart, or whatever ways they've misstepped in their relationship. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that and all the politics, and it just feels like I'm waiting out all of these sex scenes, which I don't like to feel that way, because I do like a good sex scene. Truly, I do. I'm not anti-smut. You won't hear me saying that on this channel either. So it was a good first sex scene, and then it was too many after that. But I could be in the minority there, honestly. I'm still really enjoying it, to be honest. And I'm excited to see kind of it all blow up, hopefully not literally, or / maybe hopefully literally. Then look at this! And look at her little, she's wearing a little ear headband. Oh my, and look at her little ballet slippers, by the way. So I'm like a couple days out from finishing Forbidden Alchemy. It just like gives me some time to simmer, because to be honest, I'm one of those people where I have a tendency to overrate books right after finishing them because I was just so invested typically. And this is one of those cases where I actually usually can come up with a few more like criticisms over the course of like the time that I've been away from reading it. And while like I might have like one, generally speaking, I do feel like this has like held up in my mind. Like I really enjoyed my time with it. Like I still didn't come away with the feeling of like, oh my gosh, this is like one of my new all-time favorite romantasies. But I have come away with the feeling of like, this was really solid. And I actually would recommend this to like a good variety of different people. A big criticism that I saw, because I love going through reviews after I finish a book, and a big criticism I saw from the very few rated reviewers that I saw, they said that they went into it with the expectation that the romance was going to be a steamy slow burn. Allegedly, this was marketed as that, and I can definitely see why that would be disappointing. I do feel like the romance is not the star of this particular show, but in the inverse of how I felt about In the Veins of the Drowning, which I thought was like insta-love, no chemistry, no tension, definitely not slow burn at all, while I can admit that this isn't necessarily a slow burn, I feel like the chemistry was there just because these two people had like built up each other in their heads for so long, and like when they did come together, it was still like further on in the book. It was more of a Strings of Fate type book than like Fated Mates, and I felt like it was definitely believable. And I feel like because I like Patrick as a character so much, the main male character, he's so suave and interesting and sexy in his way, that very Peaky Blinders Kingpin way, that like I bought in, maybe because I thought he was hot, but also just because like I felt the way that he reacted and the way he was protective over her. I don't know, I bought in. I thought it was realistic and believable, but I feel like if you go in with the expectation that this is going to be like a stunning romance, like yearning, like hundreds of pages of yearning and light brushes of skin and everything, that's not the emphasis. I do feel like this author really wanted to tell a story about this class dynamic, but I'm curious to hear from like people who live in the UK how they interpreted this book. But I personally, as an outsider looking in, thought it was quite good, not groundbreaking. Maybe it was more like a YA level of understanding of those things, but still good, and I agreed with it. And another thing that I think is a criticism I might agree with is the fantasy aspect of this is very much like in the background. Like it's really important, the fantastical powers that people get from this like potion that you drink when you're 12 years old, but it's also like not really explained in the text very much, like, and you don't really get to see people using their powers that much. It's mostly about politics and the social dynamics in this book, in this world. I guess I can agree like with the romance. I said like previously that like the midway point I kind of got annoyed with them. I think I have a low tolerance for couples. Like I am not a hopeless romantic. I've said that over and over and over again on my channel. I want a romantasy to work for me. I love when romance really works for me, but I'm so hard to impress because I am not a gushy romantic person. Like I'm really, really hard to impress. I was just getting annoyed and like felt like the urgency kind of like dropped in those moments. But I can see that part would be compelling for other types of readers. I don't know that I'm that interested in a sequel for this, but it takes a lot for someone like me to want to read a sequel. So keep that in mind. Unless it goes in a really different direction than this story did, I think that the strengths of this story were in those more like mundane, like interactions amongst these like lower class people and the ways that they were like traumatized by their status and their position in the world, and the substance abuse and the domestic abuse that was discussed in passing kind of, and what you see in these small interactions, that now that that's been introduced, I don't see that being like a prevalent theme in like sequels, and I personally feel like I would miss it too much and like wouldn't care so much about like the plotting in the sequels of this book just to get to the end of this rebellion situation. I don't know. It's like a maybe. I don't see myself being like super eager to pick it up though necessarily. That's usually how I feel with a lot of romantasies. Overall, I actually really, really recommend this one. I would say if you like a political fantasy, or even if you like a literary fantasy. I'm not saying it's like a literary fantasy, but even if you like things like that and you just like a book that has something to say and you want a romance that you could root for, and you like Peaky Blinders, I think this is a really good option. I would say this one is definitely a success for me, and I will be recommending it in the future for sure. I started Soulgazer, which is a romantasy release that I picked up because I saw the author's like reel about this, where she said that she based the main like rakish pirate character off of Hook from Once Upon a Time, who like I actually had a Tumblr account dedicated to back in like 2014 or 2015, somewhere around there. Around season 3, when we were in Neverland, that was my man. I was like, I didn't even read it in reviews. I was like, I'm picking this book up 100%. I like need to read that just to like kind of heal my soul. So in a sense, I think I'm coming into this with a bit of a biased perspective, in the sense of like, I'm a little bit viewing it kind of as Once Upon a Time fanfiction. I don't think that's how this book was written, but that's how I'm viewing it, and I might be a little bit forgiving. So that's my like major disclaimer. And already since starting this book, I can see the inspiration in just the way that he speaks. Granted, I think Once Upon a Time Captain Hook it does like an English accent. He's played by an Irish actor, and I'm like, now that I'm reading this book, and this book is very clearly, it's like super Irish, this book. It's like in the Irish Isles. I love the misty, rocky cliffs, seaside, the gray, stormy, like aesthetic of this. I'm really, really into it. I feel like it really has a great atmosphere so far. But it made me think about Hook Once Upon a Time, and I'm like, why didn't they just have him be Irish? Like, nothing else in that show made any sense. He didn't need to have a like English accent. I think he should have been Irish. Anyway, this is a very Irish inspired like romantasy story about this girl who has been cursed because she touched a soul stone as a child. And a soul stone is like, basically everyone's spirit is encapsulated by a soul stone, but it's very, very dangerous to touch one and it can kill you. She did not get killed, but she now kind of like inflicts pain and suffering onto people if they touch her for too long. And so her dad, who is actually a king of like one of these kingdoms, like one of these Isle kingdoms, has like kind of locked her away because of this like wretched curse that she has. He's like ashamed of her. And when she's a young woman, her dad makes a deal with a neighboring king to like have her be wed to him in like this political alliance and just basically like get her off of his hands, essentially. She wishes more than anything to get rid of this curse, and they try to give her this tattoo and all these remedies to help her like kind of like have it go away for a little while. She ends up kind of having an encounter with this very famed legendary pirate that they call like the Wolf. They kind of have a deal where he will sweep her away onto his ship and she gets out of her marriage because he needs her to find the Isle of Lost Souls. I was a little bit put off by the writing style when I first started reading this. Not that there was anything wrong with it. It was just quite purpley to start out with. Like I immediately noticed that it was really got this purple prose thing going on that I'm like, it depends. Like, it depends what kind of story I'm reading if I like that. So, like, just starting out, I wasn't sure about it. Like, it wasn't rubbing me the wrong way. But I will say I had a hard time, like, grounding myself right when I started this book. I was a little bit confused about some things, but I do think that like after the first couple chapters it does pick up quite a bit, and I didn't have too much of a problem after that. And in the beginning we haven't like seen too much of the pirate, but I have really enjoyed the scenes that he's been in. You might find him cornier than I'm finding him. He's really on the nose, like rakish pirate character, flirtatious, snarky, full of himself. I understand what this author is putting down and I am wholly picking it up, but I feel like a lot of other people will find it like kind of cringe in a way. I don't know, like I can just predict that being a response to him. That's not my response to him. I'm responding to him very positively. And in terms of our main female character, like she doesn't stand out to me immensely, but I do think this curse thing that she has going on, you can tell that it genuinely weighs on her. Like I just like with In the Veins of the Drowning, I just felt like while she was encumbered by her sirenness, it didn't come up enough. I thought like I wanted it to weigh on her more than it actually did. I feel like I could already feel just how like traumatic the experience of being cursed for this main character has been, and that trickling down into her family dynamics has been. Like it feels more believable to me in this book so far. I can feel a real love for Ireland in this book, and I've never been there, but I can feel it, and it's very enchanting atmosphere so far. So I'm looking forward to the rest of this. I'm looking forward to seeing more of this pirate main character. So far, I'm enjoying it. Okay, let's do a little update about Soulgazer, because I feel like I have some disclaimers about this book already. I'll start by saying I actually am enjoying it, and it's surprising me that I'm enjoying it because I would not describe this as a slow burn. I wouldn't describe it as insta-love or insta-lust either. Like, our two main characters are now, like, aboard a pirate ship, and they're going on kind of all of these nautical little side quests in an effort for this, like, greater quest. And I've actually really enjoyed those little side quests, though it is very, like, romance forward. I would say, like, every other scene is, like, moving their relationship forward, which is why, even though it's not like slow burn and it's I wouldn't describe it as insta love, because they have a lot of scenes together and they have a lot of like little progress. I do feel like they have a lot of like physical intimacy pretty soon, and I don't mean like sexual physical intimacy. I mean like there's a lot of touching, there's a lot of closeness in a way that I think some people don't even want them to brush fingers until later on, and usually I'm that sort of person. But for some reason this is working for me. Like for some reason I'm thoroughly entertained like watching these two. But the book is kind of a little bit parading around this pirate and being like, don't worry about anything else that we haven't gotten to yet, because this pirate is the star. Like, I kind of think that the pirate is the point of this book. Like, over the romance, over the pirate stuff that goes on, over the, like, lost souls, soulstone curse, whatever, the pirate is the point. And now that I have framed it in my head as I'm meant to read this book and enjoy the pirate in this book, I like it a lot. I also think those little moments of intimacy that we have gotten, though they're early on in the book, are well written, and I think that they're like creatively done, and I like them. Like I like the type of intimacy that has been displayed so far, and even the sexual chemistry I think is like tasteful and interesting to me and enticing. So I am enjoying it. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading. I'm gonna hopefully finish this one very soon. It's been a minute since I filmed anything, and that's like super evident on my channel. I haven't posted in like a month. I feel so bad. I was going through like really bad brain fog, and I was reading, but I was like not internalizing anything I was reading. But I did like finally get, I think my mental capacity is like there, so I managed to finish Soulgazer with whatever little like just scraps of like gray matter I still have. And this is gonna be an interesting update, I think, because I like the first two updates when I was reading Soulgazer, I was feeling like I didn't have many critiques to bring forth. Like I could tell that there were some things that I was like, it's not nailing it for me, but it's not exactly a problem. Since finishing it, or like I feel like really in the last 30% of this book, a lot more things happened that I was like, oh, that's what I didn't like in the first part of the book. Like it clicked, I think, finally. I think the atmosphere of this book is really lovely. I also think the writing style is quite good. Like I think that this author has a lot of technical skills, which I'm really happy to see. A lot of people don't. I think most of my problem with this book is, you guessed it, it's the romance. Guys, I know that I always come with a critique for a romance. The problem is I'm just not a romantic person, but I love romantic subplots. Like, I know, I get it. That's a hard, tricky place for me to be, but I have some critiques in this case. It was like 70% into this book when Fuelan and Saoirse got into an argument that I was like, wait a second, I swear that this happened before. Like, they kept having the same argument over and over and over again, and I realized that Saoirse, like, had this issue with Fuelan being this like bigger than life pirate legend kind of thing, and I think that his like huge personality and this huge weight attached to his name really weighed on her as like someone who always felt like she had to be like smaller and lesser. I think that's a really compelling narrative, actually, and I think that's a really interesting thing to make your character insecure about. I think it's interesting to use your male main character love interest as like a sounding board for your character's insecurities like that. I liked how that was portrayed. I think that's all good and well. But it was like that argument about her being like, you're just using me, like you're gonna dump me once we've found this island and all these things that she's been worried about. They had that argument, I'm not even kidding, probably at least 4 times. And it was, by the end of the book, I was like, how has she not realized that this pirate is like so down bad for her? Like he's literally gone to such lengths and we're still having this argument. It just got old, and she came off a little bit petulant. I hate using that word because it feels mean, but the thing is, I'm using that word in particular because another criticism I had about this romance was there was like a patriarchal tone to their relationship that I wasn't exactly expecting. And I tried to look at it from this perspective where I was like, okay, Saoirse is extremely traumatized by her father, who always dismissed her, and she was always under his thumb and was like pushed away by him. It makes sense to me that she kind of wants to be coddled by Fwelin in this way. It's just that I kind of didn't get the impression from the text that the author was like intending that to be the case. I think that this author just comes off like a really big fan of the hurt comfort trope, which I am too. I love that trope. I eat it up. The thing is, it happened so many times where Saoirse would be reduced to tears over, of course, her very sympathetic, of course, and traumatizing history, and something comes up and she is reduced to tears, and Fwelin like runs to her side and figuratively and literally like, you know, scoops her up and rocks her gently until she like settles. Things like this, that's just like one type of interaction that they would frequently have. I think it's okay for a character to cry a lot. I think that it makes sense why Saoirse was crying a lot. But when we're like 90% into the book and she's reduced to tears again over something that I swore that we had already like character built to get over, it was just a little bit confusing the way that her character would flip-flop. I know that I sound like such a dick. That's the thing about this particular critique, is I feel like such a dick when I'm saying this, because she has a sad backstory. I understand where it's all coming from. Like, I actually understand it, and it was still kind of frustrating to me, I think. And I'm someone who cries a lot. I'm someone who cries to my boyfriend a lot and wants him to hug me and cuddle me. I get it. It was just got a little unsatisfying because of the frequency of those sorts of interactions. And like I said, it almost came off a little bit too much like little girl, older man. I don't know how to just, like, they didn't have a big age gap or anything like that, but just because of their comparative life experiences, and that is like a big thing in their relationship. So it's like, it was just hard because it was intentional, but I don't think that the author was like, her arc is going to be about her wanting a father figure almost. Like, I actually wish it leaned into that more thematically in the writing itself. That was more something that I independently pulled out just to rationalize the interactions that they were having. But to be honest, the way it's written, it does come off more like this would be cute for a romance scene. Less about like, you know, some people are drawn toward patriarchal figures or they want that in their life because of such and such trauma. Not that Fwelin was like this brutish, patriarchal, like oppressive force. He wasn't. He was a good guy. Like I said, I like Fwelin. I really do. I think he's a little bit of a caricature of a flirty pirate, but it was a fun characterization nonetheless. It's not that he is a patriarchal characterization. It's just that the way that she views him, and I think the way that he views her, is a bit patriarchal. I hope I'm making sense. This is just a general vibe that I got, and genuinely no replies to, and this is just a general vibe that I got, and genuinely no reviews that I read saw this, and I really thought I'd see it. Maybe I am the friend that's too woke, so sue me. I don't know. That was just overwhelmingly a feeling I kept running into. I don't think that this author is like doing something problematic with this or anything like that. I'm not trying to imply that. I just think, like, it was a little bit of a miss, is what I'm saying. I think Saoirse's character arc is, on paper, really interesting, but like I said, it just was infantilized a little bit too often for a little bit too long, which left me kind of unsatisfied and a little bit frustrated. Still not fully sure what the magic system here was. Like, I wouldn't really be able to tell you that. I think a lot of this writing is a little bit purpley, and I think it got especially purpley in those more magical moments, which I can appreciate. I think it definitely makes it atmospheric, but it did leave a lot of things ambiguous, and I still couldn't really tell you how things worked in this world necessarily. But like, the heart is there, the concept is there. I would trust this author with writing another solid like romantasy book. I think that she has a promising future in the Grace Draven type of story, where it's like a slow-paced kind of introspective story between two characters, like in a magical landscape. I really do see this author growing into something like that, and I think a lot of the criticisms that I have about those characterizations and about, you know, their conflicts as a couple are things that can be easily improved upon if she just listens to feedback, probably. So I have like confidence. This is a new author. I think this might be a debut. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check on that. And I think it's solid. I really do. I think like this is a solid romantasy that I would recommend to a decent amount of people. Honestly, I think that it has appeal there for a lot of people. If you like Once Upon a Time Captain Hook, yeah, this one's for you. You should pick it up. So let's wrap up my thoughts on these books. Interestingly, we did a holy trinity here. I read 3 books and I got the holy trinity of there was a good, there was a middle, and there was a bad for me. By the way, the longer time goes on since I read In the Veins of the Drowning, the more I dislike it. I think I rated it 2 stars, but also I do think if you're someone who likes fated mates, I guess I could see it in that case. You know what I mean? I guess I just have very little tolerance for that trope. That was like my least favorite in all of these. I haven't warmed up to that one. I don't know that I'll be that interested in picking up more of that author's work necessarily. It didn't deliver for me on any of the levels that I really wanted it to, but you guys do you. A lot of people in my comment sections really love that one. My middle of the road one, as just stated, is Soulgazer. I think there's a lot of pros to this book. I think that the atmosphere is great. I think that this author has a solid handle on how they want to go about writing trauma and definitely a lot of really fun, whimsical, little magical moments here. Starry Night, pirate ship. I kind of loved that. Those critiques about the type of dynamic that they had, while I liked them on the surface, I think I wish that certain elements of their relationship wasn't dragged out as long as it was. But this is duology, so maybe some of those patriarchal undertones or those insecurities with Circe are meant to be attacked head on in book 2. I just kind of felt like it dragged its feet a little bit in that regard. And then probably my favorite of all of these is Forbidden Alchemy. Now, I'm not gonna say this is a new favorite, but I think I will read book 2 to this one. I thought this was a really interesting concept. Like I said, it's one of the few romantasy books I've read in recent years where it felt like it actually has something unique to say. Not that the other books are doing anything wrong by not taking a unique stance past being anti-monarchy and pro-women, you know what I mean? Nothing wrong with that. I agree with those things. I don't know. I thought it was refreshing. And I think it paints the sort of socioeconomic background that these characters are coming from in a complex light. It doesn't, press it down, make it one-dimensional to make it really easily digestible. It's not just poor people equal good, rich people equal elitist and bad. It doesn't shy away from showing the uglier parts of communities in these underprivileged classes and the way that it's systemic. Alcoholism and abuse and domestic abuse and all these things can trickle down from these systemic issues. And I thought that was really interesting, and that's still the thing that obviously stands out to me the most. And I thought I actually liked Patrick and Nina. I did really like them. I really like Patrick. I think he's really interesting, and I think Nina is interesting in the sense that she's been wrong at times, and I hope in book 2 she continues to be a little bit wrong, because you can't unlearn all of that in one fell swoop. So I'm hoping that the author holds tight to being a little bit more complex like that and even leans into it more. I'd be really pleased to see that. Again, hate that cover, hate that title. Really mismarketed. Thank you for your patience while I was getting this video out. I don't know, my life kind of shifted a little bit in the past month, but we're gonna get back to it. I don't know, let me know what you want to see. If you've read any of these books, please let me know what you thought about them. I really, really, really want to discuss it with you. So please let me know. Or which ones are you interested in reading, even if I didn't like one of them? Please let me know. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.